This is wildlife, and in this episode you'll see the release of a dangerous rhino and the largest birds in the world back into the wild, unreal farm animals, and a legendary elephant, a tiger showdown, a fish that makes humans seem tiny next to it, and other giant animal moments caught on camera. Let's get started. Releasing animals back into the wild after they've been kept in captivity is great and sometimes even heartwarming. But in some cases, animals can wreak havoc, as happened in Nepal a few years ago. Workers transported a rhino to the forest in the back of a truck, but it didn't want to enjoy nature. First, it decided to take it out on the elephants and people who rode them. Such a giant coming at you is not the most pleasant experience in life. But there were no injuries, and that's the main thing. Next, we have another release. We see a giant vulture. The policeman was transporting it in his car, and I wonder how such a huge bird fit in there. Check out its wingspan. It's a good thing vultures eat carrion and don't attack people, or he'd have to transport the bird in handcuffs. Or wing cuffs. And by the way, this is not the biggest bird yet. The leader's in front of you. At least it is in the Western Hemisphere. It's an Andean condor, and its size is not just staggering, it's shocking. It's incredible that such a huge creature can even take off, because its wingspan exceeds 10 feet. All eyewitnesses were delighted with this condor and its abilities. By the way, it's also a vulture, so it's not dangerous for humans. And a little more about vultures. This time, the encounter with a giant bird took place right in the air when a man was paragliding. Either he accidentally stumbled upon a bird, or the vulture was trained and flew with him from the very beginning. But the footage is unusual in any case. There is such a breed of domestic cattle as the Ankoli Watusi. Their main peculiarity is just unrealistically huge horns, because of which bulls seem to be huge. Even if an Ankoli Watusi is filmed alone or in a group of its congeners, it looks very big, and this is how an Ankoli Watusi looks next to people. It seems that these bulls just physically cannot be real, but nature knows how to surprise us. Would you like to ride such a horned wonder? And here's another huge representative of domestic cattle. The muscular bull looks unrealistically powerful in comparison with the farmer. But as they say, there's always a bigger fish. A black bull stands nearby, and it's even more muscular and bigger. Compared to it, even the light-colored bull doesn't seem so colossal. It's unbelievable what unique creatures can sometimes be found on farms. In general, many things are known in comparison. This is especially evident in the ocean, which is home to a variety of fish. Among them is the ocean sunfish. This is the heaviest bony fish on the planet, which can weigh more than 2.5 tons. You can see that it's really big, but it doesn't stand out as much in comparison to regular fish as it does in comparison with divers. Look at how the people literally dwarf when they swim up to the ocean sunfish. The fish is literally many times their size. Fortunately, it's not dangerous to swimmers and divers and never attacks them. But there have been times when ocean sunfish jumping out of the water have ended up in boats and knocked people off their feet. Everyone knows that elephants are very large and that they're the largest land animal in the world. But again, you can only truly realize the size of an elephant by getting up close to it. Look what it looks like. There's an elephant walking close to the car, and even from this distance, you can see that it's gigantic. But when it walks up to the car and passes by, you realize how colossal these animals are. Besides, it was one of the biggest elephants ever caught on camera. So the author of the video just got unforgettable emotions and experience. And this is what one of the biggest horses in the world looks like. It seems that such a big creature should be moved to a bigger stable. It clearly has little space in there. This is a draft horse, by the way. They used to be used in agriculture to carry heavy loads, and even now they're used as such workers on some farms, but more often modern draft horses are involved in various performances and shows where they surprise everyone. This footage personally reminds me of moments from horror movies featuring prehistoric monsters. When such a giant alligator passes in front of you, you can't help but associate it with the dinosaurs. Do you have the same associations? This, by the way, happened in Florida, where there are many alligators, but there are few truly giant ones. Here's another such huge creature that walks around the golf course. It's hard to believe that this alligator's real at all. It's incredible that these reptiles really grow up to such a size. But the residents of Florida are no longer surprised. They periodically watch how big alligators visit their golf courses. But this is not only the case in Florida. For example, this footage was taken in South Carolina, and the alligator here is not a small one either. I'm sure none of you would want to come face to face with one. Experienced divers say that if you accidentally hit a deer on the road, it's just a hard collision. But if you hit a moose, it's comparable to driving full speed into a brick wall. Looking at this astounding footage, you can see why this is so. This moose is impressive in its appearance alone, as it's taller than many cars. Now you know how these animals can be. It's a bit creepy to even drive next to such a creature, but it's much scarier to be face-to-face with a moose, as it happened in this case. A woman was walking her dogs when suddenly a moose tried to attack them. There were no incidents, and the moose itself later realized that it had messed with the wrong opponent. A woman who walked her dogs in shorts and barefoot in winter is clearly not one of those who should be attacked. Tigers are loners. They don't live in groups like lions, so they can't have leaders. But when tigers live in captivity, anything's possible. Look how epic this huge tiger walked into the enclosure. It looks like the final boss in some video game. The smaller tigers are terrified of it. One of them literally fell down in front of it. I'd like to think it was the tiger equivalent of a bow and respect or something. And although it tried to show aggression, the huge tiger didn't care. Having such size, it would have dealt with the bully in no time. You've probably heard of the phenomenon called the rat king. It's when several rats get their tails tangled up and can't separate. But to me, Rat King is also a great name for this rat found in New Guinea a few years ago. Just take a look at this enormous creature. It's the largest rat on the planet, which was found quite by accident while filming a documentary about a volcano. The new species was named the Bosavi woolly rat. Scientists say that the largest Bosavi woolly rat exceed 31 inches in length and weigh about 3.3 pounds. It's good that these mysterious and little studied creatures live in the wild and not in cities like ordinary rodents. Imagine how creepy it'd be. Remember that elephant I showed you at the beginning of the episode? Well, it was huge in every way, but it could have grown longer tusks. This relative of that elephant managed to do it. His name is Mastulele, and he was called the biggest elephant in Kruger Park in South Africa. He was also known as the Quiet One. Despite his colossal size and phenomenal tusks, he was humble. He didn't offend anyone, and he didn't even seem to realize his size. Elephants have tusks, and rhinos have, well, of course, the horn. All rhinos have it the same, give or take. There's nothing outstanding. And now look at this. It's not a horn, it's a full-fledged spear or even a sword. You're looking at Gertie, a female black rhino whose horn was almost 4.5 feet long. In the 1950s, she was a legend in Kenya's Amboseli National Park and was often photographed and filmed. Thanks to this, people were able to compare photos from different years and found that Gertie was the record holder in terms of horn growth rate. In 6 years, it's grown by 18 inches. If you thought porcupines were just small living thorns, then look here quickly. This is what they can be. With their quills spread out, they seem even bigger than a human at times. By the way, the needles of crested porcupines, the ones you see now, can reach 12 to 16 inches in length. Even top predators like leopards are not always able to defeat this rodent and get pricked dozens of times when trying to attack it. Here's an interesting fact. Multiple wounds from porcupine quills are one of the main reasons for man-eaters among leopards and tigers in Africa and India. An animal that's been pricked by a porcupine and got several dozen quills in its face and paws sometimes cannot pull them out and becomes a cripple, unable to hunt ungulates. In order not to die of hunger, the predators have to attack humans, who, unlike ungulates, cannot quickly escape from a big cat. I don't think many people realize how big tortoises can be. Take a look at what they look like up close. These giants are Aldabra giant tortoises, and they're among the largest in the world. They're also super long livers. These reptiles can live for up to 200 years or more and still do quite well. And this turtle surprised all the people on the beach. People cannot believe that such an animal's real. I can understand them. It's not every day you see the biggest turtle in the world so close. This is a leatherback sea turtle, and in the world of turtles, it has no equal. Some individuals weigh almost a ton. The guy was watching the float closely, and as soon as it twitched, he started to pull out the prey. Or rather, he just tried to do it. The huge fish turned out to be stronger than the fisherman and dragged him into the lake. Considering that at the end of the video he came out without a rod, apparently the fish took his rod by force. The previous video showed us that fishing is a challenging activity, but there are people who have been much luckier. Next, I'll show you huge creatures caught by fishermen – goldfish. When goldfish are caught in fairy tales, the one who catches them can claim 3 wishes. In the real world, however, catching a goldfish can set a world record. At least a man named Andy from the UK was lucky enough to do it. Last November, he went fishing in France and caught a giant goldfish, which is a hybrid of a European carp and an ornamental carp. It weighed 66 pounds, and the fisherman could hardly hold it in his hands. As for me, such a fish should not grant 3 but 300 wishes. The record fish was named the carrot. In fact, this fish has long been a legend of the local lakes. It's 20 years old, and many fishermen have tried to catch it, but only Andy was able to do it. It took the man 25 minutes to retrieve the prey from the water. Don't worry, Andy didn't take such a legend with him. After taking the pictures, the fisherman released the carrot back into the lake and went to celebrate the record. He celebrated it drinking a cup of tea, of course. He's British and shouldn't forget about 5 o'clock tea tradition. Stingray. Last year was quite generous with record-breaking catches. Another one was set in Cambodia. In June, a local fisherman caught an incredible stingray. Even from the pictures and video, it's clear that this is a real giant. Of course it is! 660 pounds of pure weight and about 13 feet in length. Such individuals are not so common in nature in general, and catching them is a very rare thing. When the ichthyologists measured the stingray, they informed the fishermen that it had broken a record that had been held since 2005. Moreover, the caught stingray became the largest freshwater fish caught in the history of scientific observations. Like Andy, who caught the golden giant, the Cambodian fisherman didn't kill the stingray or take it home. He was rewarded for doing so. The fisherman was paid $600. This, by way, is the market value of the caught stingray. A stingray weighing 660 pounds or a goldfish weighing 66 pounds is certainly impressive, but what about a fish that weighs almost 3 tons? Such giants do exist, and I'm not even talking about sharks now. Last year was remembered for another incredible catch. In October, an ocean sunfish was caught in the Azores. This is the heaviest bony fish in the world. These giants are up to 10 feet long and can weigh over 2 tons. But off the coast of the Azores, they caught the biggest ocean sunfish in history. Even though it was already breathless, its size amazed everyone. The weight of the giant fish was 6,050 pounds. This is an absolute record, not only for the ocean sunfish, but also for all bony fish on the planet. Moreover, the fish was 11.4 feet tall and 11.8 feet long. This catch broke the record, which had been held for more than 100 years. By the way, the fish of this species are interesting not only for their incredible size, they're also record breakers in terms of fertility. It's difficult to believe this, but at one time, the females of this species produce up to 300 million eggs. Yeah, not thousands or hundreds of thousands, namely millions. However, after that, the female literally doesn't care about its offspring in any way, so virtually all the eggs die. No wonder the ocean sunfish is now considered a vulnerable species. Last July, Chile was shaken by an unusual event. The news spread across the country that fishermen had caught a very strange monster. Something very long and creepy was rising on a crane from the water while the locals gawked at it. What was it? A creature unknown to science? An alien fish? Or a prank? Well, if it's a prank of nature. In fact, a giant oarfish, also known as the king of herrings, was caught in Chile. While the ocean sunfish is the heaviest of the bony fish, the giant oarfish is the longest. Individuals can exceed 33 feet in length. Not surprisingly, these fish are considered prototypes of sea serpents, which frightened medieval sailors. The Chilean individual was slightly less than 16 feet in length, but even this is impressive. The individual became one of the fishing records, not only of the last year, but of the history of fishing in general. But the locals were not particularly happy about the news. Chileans believe that catching a giant oarfish is a bad sign that bodes ill. This long fish is considered a harbinger of disaster. Coincidence or not, just a couple of weeks after the catch, a powerful 6.2 magnitude earthquake occurred in Chile. Catfish. We have another new record coming up. It was set at the very end of last year. A British fisherman went to Thailand just to catch some fish, but accidentally caught a Mekong giant catfish. The weight of the fish was almost 440 pounds. Plus, it was over 6.5 feet long. As the fisherman says, it was a real battle. He fought a whole hour and a half with the catfish and eventually overpowered it, pulling it out of the water. He even needed help to do it. After that, the fisherman gave the catfish a little rest and he himself started preparing for measurements. After the measurements and photos were taken, the catfish was released back to its home waters. There's no other way. Mekong giant catfish are endangered, so you can't catch these fish for sale or for food. The British fisherman set the record only last year, but the all-time record has not yet been broken. It was set in 2005, also in Thailand. Then fishermen managed to catch a rare individual of gigantic size. It was 8.8 feet, and its weight was 646 pounds. Check this fish out! But that's not all. The year before last, another unusual catfish was caught, at least because it was fished out of the Pripyat River. People have long said that in the waters near the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, one can find mutant catfish of incredible size, which are particularly aggressive. And now we can see this for ourselves. The catfish caught in the Pripyat weighed over 176 pounds. Although this individual was smaller than those caught in Thailand, the fight was no less fierce. The fishermen spent an hour trying to drag the mutant catfish to the surface. It's extremely dangerous to eat radioactive catfish. Therefore, after measurements were taken, the Pripyat record holder was released into the river. I suggest taking a break from fish for a while and taking a look at the catch that stands out from this episode, because it's a squid, but an unusual one. The Antarctic colossal squid. These are the largest squids in the world. If giant oarfish are considered prototypical sea serpents, these squids are real krakens in the real world. They live in deep water, rarely rise to the surface, and even more rarely are caught in nets. All the more amazing is the 2014 catch when fishermen from New Zealand caught a colossal squid weighing 772 pounds. Just imagine how many squid rings you could make from this giant. Joking aside, the catch was one of the record-breaking in terms of colossal squids. First, everyone was impressed by the weight. Such heavy squids were very rarely recorded by scientists. Secondly, the length was also surprising. Each of the 8 tentacles of this monster exceeded 3.2 feet. Finally, the catch itself was extremely difficult. Don't think that the squid decided to swim near the surface of the water and it was easily caught with the help of a net. The fishermen lifted this kraken from the depth of 6,560 feet. Why was all this done? For scientific purposes. The giant was delivered to scientists who began to examine it. Colossal squids are always a rarity and a gift, so scientists take every opportunity to study these mysterious big creatures of Antarctica. Let's get back to fish and new records. This time we'll talk about the Atlantic blue marlin. This is a very large predatory fish that swims in the Atlantic. These giants are up to 16 feet long and weigh more than 1,750 pounds. In addition, they're very fast and boast a kind of spear on their snout, which pierces their opponents. It was this dangerous fish that fishermen caught last year in Cape Verde, Africa. After half an hour of fight and efforts, the fishermen pulled a giant fish weighing 1,370 pounds out of the water. Look how big it is! Catch is very impressive. It's become a record of the last few decades, as well as the second record in history. By the way, unlike previous cases, this fish was not spared. It was not released into the ocean, but cut up and fed to local residents. As for the all-time record, it belongs to an amateur fisherman named Paulo Amorium. In 1992, he caught an Atlantic blue marlin weighing 1,402 pounds. It took Paulo almost an hour and a half to subdue the big guy, but he still defeated the predator. And finally, let me tell you about the record that many of you have probably been waiting for. I'm talking about the great and terrible sharks. Yes, they too are often fished out of the seas and oceans. But it's not so often possible to catch really interesting and large individuals. Jamie Dennis and his friend Mitchell managed to do just that. In 2016, they caught a hammerhead shark off the coast of Western Australia. Most importantly, they used ordinary spinning. Yes, the one that can be used to catch some carp or perch. Because the guys didn't have good equipment, they relied only on their skills and strength. They exhausted the shark, and after an hour and a half, they pulled it ashore. The 13-foot-long monster became the main trophy in the collection of the Australian fishermen, as well as one of the largest sharks ever caught. Common jellyfish are just as creepy to me. I mean, the ones that are found on some beaches and don't let you swim normally in the sea. Although, after what I saw, I dramatically changed my mind. And these creatures have become, in my eyes, something like seeds, which you cannot notice at all. The thing is, some guys from New Zealand stumbled upon a huge jellyfish that had been washed ashore. What adds to the horror is that when they found it, it was still twitching. I kind of feel sorry for it. I'd like to help and move it back into the sea, but tell me, honestly, would you dare to take it and push it into the water? I hardly believe it. But don't think of it as the peak of creepiness to be found on the beach. So ordinary friends were strolling along the sand in Wales one summer day when they spotted this 23-foot creature on the beach. They couldn't identify it, so they called for help. But the scientists couldn't give a clear answer either. At first, they thought it was a whale, but this theory quickly lost its meaning because of a number of examinations which were unsuccessful. The second assumption was a blobfish, the one that lives at great depths. Everything seems to fit since it swims out of its usual habitat and swells up, just like this one. However, as a rule, blobfish reach a size of 12 inches, no more. And here, as I said, was a 23-foot individual. I think it will not work to say what or who was washed up on the beach in Wales. The body is almost completely decomposed. There's no guesswork, and forensics is also powerless. So let's also consider that it could have been a creature still unknown to the world, or even some mystical creature, like from horror movies. Speaking of horror movies, in them I often saw creatures with a horse's face instead of a head. Something like that was found on a beach in New Zealand. The mysterious creature washed up on the shore had already decomposed, yet it resembled no other creature known to the world. The only guess for scientists was that it could be one of the cetaceans. However, the reason for such an assumption was only the size. Therefore, share your guesses as to who this monster with a horse's face could be. The skeleton of a mysterious creature. The next monster in this episode was clearly much larger than the creature from New Zealand. Its huge skeleton was found by an ordinary Scottish girl who was walking on the beach with her loyal red dog. The girl stumbled upon the unidentified object, posted the find on the internet, and for a couple of days gained more than 10,000 comments. There were lots of versions – a whale, a seal, a dinosaur, a legendary kraken, or even a relative of the Loch Ness Monster. In fact, it was impossible to understand who exactly the skeleton belonged to, and its enormous size inspires fear and anxiety that something gigantic was floating underwater, and we didn't know about it. But it's not always the creature's size that determines its danger and power, is it? We've all heard of mermaids, creatures with long, loose hair and fishtails. They can lure underwater, swim very fast, and fight well. Until today, I thought they were just characters from fairy tales or books. But after what I saw, I really started to worry. Witnesses found an incomprehensible skeleton washed ashore. Clearly had a tail, and its chest resembled that of a human. You compare the skeleton to a mermaid, everything fits. Do you think it could have been a mermaid? Or if we dismiss this possibility, who does the skeleton belong to anyway? Sea hound. Usually something even remotely resembling jellyfish, whales, or sharks is being washed ashore. That's why this creature made me seriously nervous. First of all, it doesn't look like any underwater creature I know. Secondly, its face with a lot of teeth frightens me. It looks like an underwater hellish hound with a long tail, 4 legs, and a powerful jaw. Simply put, all signs point to something terrestrial. Nevertheless, it was 100% washed ashore from the water. What do you think it could have been? Share your guesses in the comments. Mysterious creature on a UK beach. They say that walking on the beach is fun and enjoyable. They say it's especially cool to do it with kids. Well, I don't know. The following monster disproves that statement. A family from Great Britain was walking along the beach and saw something that scared the hell out of not only the children who scattered in different directions, but also the adults. According to a witness, they noticed something strange in the sand near the lighthouse and decided to walk closer. In front of them, there was an incomprehensible creature that none of them had ever seen before. That's all, guys. What creepy creature impressed you the most? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and see you later.